Well, it's a momentous day. We're going to be turning this computer off for the very last time. This is my old HP I've had for, I believe, since 2012. And it's been a good computer. And I've upgraded it a little bit in a couple of things. But anyway, it's time for it to go because I don't know if you saw that last video that I did, the part one of our little trip to Moab. I'll put a link to it up here in the corner. And that's an 11-minute video, and it took just a few seconds shy of 40 minutes to render. That's a long time. And the real problem is not so much that, because I can go in the other room and have supper or whatever while that's going on, or do some other stuff. But when you're trying to scrub through the video and you're trying to get things ready, that also just slow. So I decided it was time to upgrade. And why am I shutting this off for the very last time? Well, I'm going to cannibalize some of the parts out of it, particularly the SSD, a couple of hard drives, the mouse, the keyboard, all of that I'm going to keep as I build a brand new computer. And you say, wow, this old guy without a 12-year-old here to help him is going to build a computer. Well, I did it once before, about 10 years ago, I think. So, and my wife's still using that computer, by the way. It's right there under the camera that's photographing this. So anyway, so we're going to shut this down. You get to witness the very last shutdown of this computer. And then we'll build a new one right after we roll this intro. Well, here it is. Here are all the makings of the new computer, including this huge case. And while you were watching the intro, I went into the old computer and took out the hard drives and also the CD or DVD burner that I had in that old one. Because this particular case, which is what we'll start with, this particular case does have space for a 5 1/4 drive. I didn't buy it for that specifically, but it just happened to have it, and I thought, well, since I've got a DVD drive in that other case, I might as well go ahead and use it. Oh, so here we have a box, and within the box we have a box. Don't you love these guys? Like, so we'll dump this one out. Such a battle. My goodness gracious. That inside that one. So I'm not wasting a bunch of space. Let's turn it around and have you take a look. This is a big case. This is a big case. Let me just compare it. To the other case. So there's that one, there's that one. So this is a huge case. Look at the width on them. 9 inches compared to just under 7, 6 3/4 inches. So huge case. I wondered when I looked at that box, I thought, I think that's a big case. All right. And I'm going to leave this plastic on here for a while. just to keep it protected and looking slick and nice. Tempered glass. So that's not plastic, that's tempered glass. And then here is some kind of a dust filter that just, oh, it's magnetic, has magnetic edges here that go down over there. That's nice. Very nice. I think I got all 4 of them off. Didn't I? Yeah. Okay, so we'll take, tempered glass, and it drops. So we've got to have some place to put the screws. I have this little tray thing. We'll put those over here. And I'm going to set this down in here where it's protected and safe. So here we are in the opening. Looks good. It's got nice rubberized places here for passing the cables. There's some cables in there. And can we take the other side off? Yes, we can. And that's going to prove to be very handy. 2 thumb screws, which also have Phillips heads in them. And we'll put that over here with the tempered glass. And put these in here. Well, and it'll be fairly easy since there's 2 of those and 4 of those. So even I can figure that out. Hey, look at here. Back here on the back side is, I'm pretty sure that is the place for my SSD. Lots of attachments here. Cables being managed, including the nice Velcro straps. Cords coming out here that connect up to our controls. Now, I never did tell you the brand or anything on this one. This has 2 3.0 USBs. It's got the little power, and it's got a microphone and headphone set in there. And then tucked away in here in one of the hard drive ports are the instructions and the cables and that kind of thing. So I'm going to very quickly. Oh dang, there's no reason to remove those screws. By the way, this case, in case you're interested, is made by Fantex. It is the N through Pro by Fantex. Bought it on Amazon. I bought everything here on Amazon. Get my Prime shipping, you know. Gotta have it the next day. I don't see any screws. I don't think I even needed to remove those screws. I think I made a mistake. And it won't be the first, and it won't be the last, because they didn't have anything. They didn't have anything to do with these. So that's cool. And so here in this one is our accessory box. So let's see what's in the accessory box. Some zip ties and a whole bunch of nice black screws that I know are going to come in handy as we go through this. The instructions, do not throw these instructions out. I'm sure there's going to be times that I'm going to want these instructions. So to know where to channel each of these different wires, etc. And then some stuff about RMAs and things like that. So there are the instructions on this, and that's a good looking case. It's good looking on the, I mean, it's very simple on the front, very clean, simple on the front. Got the dust thing on the top. There seems to be plenty of airflow in there, and I was wrong about that button on the side, because this appears to be the on-off button on top. So I don't know what this little button here is. I guess I'll have to read the instructions. So there we go. That's my case, and I'm going to put the case down so it's out of the way right now. I think that probably the next thing that I want to do is look at this power supply. I got the EVGA 750. Somewhere I read that one of the things that I was supposed to be getting needed, I think it was a power, I think it was a different GPU, graphics processing card that I was looking at. It said it needed at least 500 watts. Well, if you need at least 500 watts, you know, you got to have 750 to be safe, right? In actual fact, I don't think I need anywhere near 750. 600 probably would have been a little bit of overkill. But 750 is way overkill, and I think I told you already, I'm into overkill. I'll put a link to all these parts below that I bought from Amazon, so you'll know how much they cost. I think I'm into this without. I did buy a new 4K monitor, which isn't here yet. It's supposed to arrive today, but without the monitor, I think I'm into it about $800, somewhere around $800. And we'll put that down in the comments, what it ended up being without the monitor. I have monitors, but they're all 1080, and I wanted, since I'm building a 4K editing machine, I wanted the capability of doing 4K. Top instructions. Now, one of the nice things about this particular G5 750 watt is that it is modular, so you don't have all those wires running around. Here's your power cord, and here's all the other wires. This is the first modular one I've ever had. It's got some other accessories in here. We'll find out what those are for as we go. And this is for people who like to do the Tide Pod challenge. So they can have this. I'll save this for those that want to eat something like that. If they'll eat a Tide Pod, maybe they'll eat that thing too. So this goes over here out of the way. Okay, so we're going to take a look here. Obviously this is going on the bottom, and so we're going to look and see how it goes in, and it slides right in there just as slick as it can be. Very, very nice and clean. Lining up these holes is probably more difficult than it really ought to be, but I think I just did one. I got one. That's a start. Now we'll get the other side. We are in there correctly. All right. Next step. Probably the next step would be to mount the motherboard. And what we've got is the MPG X570 Gaming Plus. Now, I'm not a gamer. You know, the only games I play are like literally Hearts and those kinds of things. I don't play the high-end games. But you know what we have here? We have a sticker. So we can put that sticker on there if we want to. We also have a teeny little screw in there. We have the plate that makes it for where the ports all come through. The portal, we'll call it the portal plate. What do you think of that? Is that a good term for it? The portal plate. We'll also get some scissors to open that up so I don't hurt myself in the process. This here is an interesting thing that I saw in the specs that told me it was there, but I don't know what it is yet. So we're going to have to read the instructions to find out about that. And then we've got some cables. And you can't have too many cables, I don't think. Here says quick installation guide and Gaming Plus motherboard, all of the more detailed instructions. So let's open this nice static-free bag. I'm going to clip this. Out it slides, and there are a bunch of little screws on the bottom here. We'll find out if those are something I need to take off and then set back on when I put it on, mount it on there, or not. And then here we are. Play hard, stay silent, zero frost fan. I think we're supposed to remove this plastic, so the fan will work better if we remove the plastic. Maybe I'll leave it on for now and then put it on when the time comes. What do we got here on the back? Our Cat 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think these are all USB 3.2. I don't know, I'll have to look in the instructions. These two are USB 2.0, I believe. But we'll find out later. Okay, so let's see how we put this together. And look inside here. Now I'm going to take just a minute and figure this out, and then I'll come back and explain it to you. Well, as you can see, I've kind of rearranged and cleaned things up a little bit, and I've added a new camera in here so you can see what's going on inside the box. And I'll get that started here. Let's see if it's actually working. It seems to be. So, we're happy campers. All right. So it says to install this down here. Now, understand that these connections, the ports, need to go right into here. So we're going to put those in there. But before we do that, matter of fact, I think I'll stop this camera for a minute. And we'll find that plate that we had that I said I needed the scissors for. And we're going to install that plate in there first. Because if we don't, we'll have to take it out, and then we'll be unhappy. And so I'm going to come around there and let you look at the back of me for a minute. We'll set that right in there, so it just somehow snaps into place. There we go. Hear that little snapping sound as it went in. And I guess it's there. Okay, cool. So we got that. And then when the motherboard goes in, these will line up with those. So these will line up with those. All right. Is it entertaining to watch an old man try to do this, what should be being done by a 12-year-old? I put this in backwards here from where I want it to be. I want it to be like this, and then that camera shows it a lot better. So let me make sure this camera's working. Alright, so I got this camera working. And now we're going to take this motherboard, and it says to use the M3 screws that are provided. And so I went through and located those M3 screws, I believe. And now I just have to make sure that everything lines up like that. But most importantly, that the screw holes line up. You hear little clicks and stuff as things snap into place, and I understand that that is supposed to be okay to hear those. What I'm not seeing is that the, okay, there we go, I think those screw holes are lining up okay. Let me look on the back, see how these are looking, these ports. And then the M3 screw is a teeny little screw. I mean, it's really a teeny little screw, as you can see there in that camera, and almost, yeah. So let's get our first one in there. Now I'm not going to tighten it up too tight. I'm going to leave it just enough to know that it's in there, and it's not in there. So full disclosure, I stopped the video and I went in, took the motherboard back out, and re-snapped in that port plate that goes on the back, because that's where my problem was. I didn't have it snapped in right. So be sure you have that snapped in good and solid. You'll know when it really is good and solid. I thought it was, but it wasn't. But now I know it is. So I put that in there, and everything is fitting much better now. So the tricky is now is taking these fat fingers of mine and getting the screws, these teeny screws, into these holes and getting it set. So that is the trick. Find some more M3s. Alright, let me make sure I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. 9 screws tightening that. Now I'm going to go through and tighten them all down. Alright. We are in there solid. Next, I think we ought to put the AMD Ryzen 7 2700. Okay? Now here, 2700X. You know, we all have budgets to deal with, and then we have our particular needs. And this one was about half the price of the 3700, and yet it gives about 80, 70, 80, I don't know, you can go look at the benchmarks, but it gives pretty close to the same, you know, not that far from the same performance as the 3700 as far as what I need. And just being an amateur vlogger, not making any money on it, just doing simple stuff, that's all, you know. I figured this is going to be such a huge speed upgrade from what I've got now to what I'm going to have, that I can get fine with the 2700. You have to decide what's going to work for you, but that's what's going to work for me. So in here is the actual chip. Here is our Ryzen chip, and here is the cooler for that chip, because you do not want to run hot. Now you can get these with different coolers, cords to connect and power it, instructions and certificate of authenticity. So first thing we're going to do is, and a sticker, you got to have those stickers. What would we be without the stickers? So the first thing we want to do is take the chip itself out. Now this is, as you I'm sure are very, very well aware, this is where it all happens. This is where it all happens. And that's a heavy little thing for its size. Now how do you line these up? There's a little teeny, I'm going to put it under this camera now, little teeny triangle right there. Now there's also a little dot there, but nothing on this end. So that's where that's what you're looking for. Now if you look inside the motherboard, you can see here, there's a piece that slides up. Now how do you find where the triangle goes? Because if you don't put this in right, you're going to be in trouble. So that's where the fun begins, I guess. I'm going to get a flashlight, see if I can give it a little bit more help on this. Hey, it's so cold in here my hands turned blue. Now I decided to put on some nitrile gloves just to make sure that I don't shock anything, and I hope I'm not making a mistake. But anyway, our problem was that we couldn't find out for sure where the little triangle went, and so I did a little looking around, and I finally found that up here in this little corner right there, that one is square. The rest of them are triangled off, but that one is the pins holes come in a square manner. And so I decided that that must be the place that the triangle goes. And it's got a very, very faint little triangle look at it. So this isn't my absolute favorite way for it to work, to make it easy, but it works. So we take that and we very gently drop it in there, and guess what? Oh, we forgot to put this up. So we put this key up, drop it in there carefully, and of course my idea that the Ryzen should go the same way as the MSIs obviously didn't work. And I don't know what that thing's supposed to do, because it doesn't, oh, maybe it holds, oh, I guess it locks it in. Okay, so yeah, somehow or another it does lock it in. Now the next thing is we want to put this on, and it goes this side down obviously, and that is a thermal paste. So it comes already with that thermal paste on it. And how this goes on, there are these pieces here which will latch on to some little latches that are there. So I don't know, we're going to figure out, can we put it on? Here you're looking at the side of the already mounted CPU and cooler. That's the important part, is the cooler here. And these parts here have a little anchor, and this part, which is attached to the cooler, it anchors, grabs onto that, and then this handle, you switch it over and it locks it in. Now there's one just like it on the other side without the handle part. Doesn't have the handle. So this is the only one that locks it into position, is that handle right there. So here we are. That's all locked in. We're in there. Now what we got to do is find where this goes. And there should be a place for it. We're going to look for that place. We didn't have to look very far because it's right here. Get the lights on the right way. It's right there. As a matter of fact, it even says in very small letters next to it there, CPU fan. So we take this. I don't think that there's too many ways you can put it on, so we're going to lock that on there. And there we go. It's locked on there. That should work. Okay, so what do you think we ought to put on next? Should we go with the graphics card? And what I bought is the Radeon RX 570, which again is not the most powerful graphics card out there. Again, this is kind of an economy build because I'm an economy video guy. My vlog is not sponsored, it's not monetized, so everything that I get and use, it comes out of my own pocket, and I don't make any money from any of it, and so I have to be frugal. And if you read all of the documentation, Lightroom, Adobe Premiere, and I use Premiere Elements. I'll just be up front with you. I don't even use Premiere Pro. I use Premiere Elements. I do have Lightroom CC and Photoshop, but so I pay the monthly fee for that. But I don't use Premiere Pro because my videos just aren't that powerful. But anyway, here is our graphics card. Double fans should be pretty exciting, and we'll figure out. It's not too hard to put those on. We're going to remove the plastic, of course. Now, what we've got to do before we put this graphics card on, I don't want it sliding off onto the floor, is we have to decide what we're going to do on the back here. So I'm going to shut this camera off for a minute and move it out of the way so that we can turn it around and do what we need to do on the back. Because we're going to have to remove what looks to me, for sure, we're going to have to remove 2 of these panels, not just one, because of the size of this card, which is fine. Now what we need to do is line that up, and as you can see, there's a little divider right here, and right here is where that goes. So we take that off. This plastic part here that protects the pins comes off. There's your split part right there that goes into there, and we carefully slide that into. Now you can't see. Oh, okay, so now I learned that I took off one of the wrong ones, so I'm going to go fix that and then I'll come back, because it turns out that the way that slides in, it I needed the second and third one removed, not the first and second. So I'm going to stop, I'm going to fix that, and then I'll be back. As promised, I'm back, and now I've put the top one back in and removed the third one. So now we have what will fit better. There's only the one PCIe on this board. There we go, and it locks right in. It even locked my finger in with it. And then put these screws in to hold it into place with the other. Doorbell, I'll bet you that's my new monitor coming. I'm going to go check. Indeed it was. It's the new UHD 4K monitor. So we'll mess with that later. I'm not going to play with it now. But excited to get that and see what kind of differences we got. Okay, so we've got this in. We were putting the screws into the holes. All right, so now what are we going to put in next? Well, first of all, I think we're ready to take this off before it gets in the way and gets forgotten. So that is now off of there. Stick that over on here. And so now we get to put some memory in. And before we put the memory in, I've got Vengeance LPX DDR4. This isn't the fastest they make. This is 2666. Again, just like before, this is kind of a budget build. You might want some faster stuff. You might want faster on every single element as you go through this. Got to cut the seal. But I thought this DDR4 2666 is going to give me some good speed at a good budget fair price, and it was recommended. I am going to double check the instructions on the motherboard and see how they like the memory installed. And so if you're just doing 2, then you do DMMA2 and DMMB2. Alright, that's not hard. Take this first one. Again, notice the little mark here. If it's in there, pretty sure it goes this direction. Slide it down in there. We press down on this little tab so it gives it some, oh okay, that opens it up. You do it on both ends? No, just on the one end. And then you click it down in and then lock it back up, and that locks the memory in there. We do the same thing on DMMB 4, or DMMB2, not B4, DMMB2. So only the one end does flip down. I was re-experimenting with it. You lock it in there, so it really you hear it click and you can kind of feel it click, and then you put that tab back up. And there's our memory. So now we've got this. Now it's time to start figuring out the wiring. And then also the SSD. Now I took this SSD out of my old computer. It's the 850 Pro, and still has a lot of life left in it. And it also is my C drive, so it has all of the programs and all of that on it, and Windows 10 home version. Well, you can see I moved things around quite a bit here, and there's a reason for that. And that is because I'm going to show you on the back side, motherboard's on this side. This is the back side, that's the back of the motherboard, is a place to install the SSD, which is kind of cool. And then there's a set where you can install a second one. You just have to get a new bracket for it. But anyway, so you slide that up. It's on those little rubber grommet things. You slide that up and install your SSD. Where did I put those screws? Right here. Oh, phew, whoo, finally. So, I got all those on there. Then you just stick it in there, slide it on, and boom. Now we've got a cable. And so the cable is going to connect. This is the SATA cable. Make sure we have it go in the right direction with the everything lined up correctly. Stick it in there. Alright, that's locked in. And then take this and push it through there. We'll take care of that in a few minutes. Okay, so that is putting the SSD. Now the other drives will go in here. I'm not going to connect them up yet for the simple reason that I want this one to take over as the C drive, even though it's the only one that has the Windows operating system on it. I don't want any confusion, so I won't connect these up until I've got this connected up and this one working. Then I'll connect those others up. Well, a few things have changed in the last few minutes. One thing is, you notice that the power supply is back out again. I figured out, hey, this is a modular power supply, and it's really difficult to get into these parts when you're back there. So you need to bring the power supply out and until later on when you've got all of the right things hooked up. So this is the part that's going to go to the, several of these cords will go to the motherboard. Some of them to power up the CPU. This says MB on it for motherboard. This is our CPU power units. I'll turn it around in a few minutes and we'll show you that. You remember me putting this Samsung, it was just a few seconds ago in your time. And so there's the SATA cord that goes in for that. And there's going to be several other cords we're going to connect up. And we're going to have to do this kind of piecemeal so that it hopefully makes some kind of sense. I've also undone all of these Velcro straps that were here and pulled these cords up so they're out of the way. So I'm going to run, fortunately, this, or not fortunately, this case is well designed, so it has openings down here as well as these in the back that you can see my fingers here. So I'm going to bring this main one up in here. And that way it's got a lot less to go. So that's where I'm going to bring that one in. And it's got a clip right here. There's a clip, and that clips on this side. So there we go. Heard a little teeny snap. Okay, so there is that cord, and that's out of the way. So things are configured a little differently now. You will notice that this wire that I had poked through here that used to be blue is now black, and that's because I figured out that the problem with the blue wire was that it is at a 90-degree angle and it's going the wrong way, so it doesn't fit either the back of the SSD in its current configuration. I guess I could have turned the SSD around, so it doesn't fit the back of the SSD, and it doesn't fit in this way on there. So that's the problem with that. So by putting in the black cable, I'm able to lay it in flat and go up here into that position with the little metal lock out, line it up, hopefully, and boom, in it goes and locks in. So now we have the SSD connected now, and we have this part of the power connected, but that's not all. If you recall, there were several other wires coming out of that power supply, and so up here at the top there are some other connectors, and this one is labeled on the back of the power supply as the CPU 1. So let's do CPU 1 first. Get some light in there. And hopefully be able to see what we're doing, to plug these in right up in there. And you probably won't be able to watch me actually do it because of the darkness, but that's what I'm going to do now, is plug those in, and they're labeled up there. So there's my CPU 1, and over here's the CPU 2. And now we also need to connect some SATA cables and some VGA cables. VGA for the graphics card, SATA for several things, including hard drives and the SSD drive. So we'll get those connected up. I only have one hand here, so you'll just have to trust me. Okay, pulling through the back here, I have two CPU connectors. Now I have CPU 1 already connected up in here. You can CPU 1 connected up in there, and then here's, but I have two of them. So the obvious answer is you only connect up one of those, and this is from the CPU 2 power on the power cable. Now on the top of these, I don't know if you can see it here, but on the top there's that little clip. You see that little clip? That little clip goes right in there. Also you'll see some shapes right in there, so you can only put it in one way. And again, my fingers are going to get in the way. You're not going to be able to see me do it, so I'm just going to do it and then show you the results. There we go, all plugged in, CPU powered and ready. I did read somewhere that it says that you really don't need that third one, this last one that I installed, unless you plan to overclock pretty significantly. And I have no intention to overclock, but I want to be ready just in case. The other thing I wanted to show you was these handy hard drive insert pieces that this particular case has. So you pop these out like that, this one out like that, drop that hard drive in with the with your power supply and SATA connection up front. Get your holes lined up somewhere here. I hope they're lined up. Hard to tell. And snap them in. And there you go. Okay, so that's how you put the hard drive, and then you just slide the hard drive into here. It's time to start hooking up some cables, and there are two kinds of what you might call SATA cables. The one coming out of the power supply is this large, wide SATA cable, and it is just strictly for power. And then your data communications is the narrow one. Now you'll see, before you saw it in black, I finally changed now to red. Not that any of those make any difference, other than just worked better for me. So anyway, we'll plug in the SATA cable, the data SATA, SATA data cable. You notice there's little shapes here that require you to put them in a certain way so you can't mess it up. You can try and you might be able to break something, but if you do it right, and that just clips right in really nice. And then these have multiple connections in case you have several drives together. I'll show you when I hook up the hard drives how that works. And again, I always like to use the first one for the first thing if possible. Not that it's going to make any difference at all. Again, you've got the shapes that you've got to meet with the little tick marks or whatever you want to call them, which go into the right place and won't go into the wrong place. So plug that in, click it in, and there are your SATA power and SATA data cables connected up to our C drive, which in this case is the Samsung solid state drive. One of my hard drives is already mounted, so I'm going to mount the other one in here. Now, as I mentioned before, I want to, before I connect these up, I want to run the computer so that I make sure that it detects the right drive as the C drive first. But I'm going to go ahead and hook these up just so you know how it works. So we've got the again, the SATA. Now remember the blue one that I showed you before with the 90-degree angle and how it wasn't going to work with the C drive because of the configuration. So, but I can use that blue one here, and I'll show you in just a second. And then another red one. This is not the same as the red one that went to the C drive. It's a different one. And then remember I told you about the power cables and how you can hook up several with one cable connection coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and hook the very first one in the bunch to this top one, and the second one, another one, doesn't matter which one. I think I'll just go with the third one. And I'm probably in my own camera's way here, but there's only certain things you can do. Then this red one, I'm going to connect to the bottom like this. And the blue one, click, and it's in there. So there are the hard drives connected up the way they should be. These other little points are for other things. If you need to make a master, slave, anything like that, there are ways to connect that. But for what we're doing here, we don't even need them. You saw the cables that were on the other side that were for connecting up the case to the motherboard, and one of them was this one here. It's in blue. I have already plugged it in. This was a bear to get in. As a matter of fact, I ended up actually using a little petroleum jelly to get it to slide in smoothly and all of the way. And it is in and all the way. That little blue thing can't go any further. The other ones that are in here are the HD audio. Let's see, which is your mic and your speakers. And then this one and another one just exactly like it are for running your fans. Here they are. These two are for running your fans. This one is your power switch. And this one is for your hard drive LED, so that when your hard drive is spinning, gives you an indicator. The audio over here, which is marked J-Odd or HP-Odd, I'm sorry, on here it says HD audio. On the motherboard it says J-Odd. Notice that, I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's one pin, one place where you can't put in a pin, and obviously over here there's one place where there isn't a pin. So it makes it very easy to identify exactly where it goes. Okay, that just clips right in, piece of cake. Then you've got under here, it's marked. You may not be able to read it on the camera, but fan 1, fan 2. I do want to point out, however, there are 4 pins. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there's a little black piece of plastic underneath for a guide. And on my particular configuration, there are only 3 holes but then there's those tracks for where the guides go in, so you have to track them in so that they go in with that guide. And if you do that, well, it clips in very easily. And my last 2 points to plug in are right here on what they call the JFP, which is the front panel connectors. And if you go in the instructions, you see that these top 2 are for the switch, and the bottom 2, or top 2 right, are for the switch, and the bottom 2 left are for the HDD. And my hands are going to get in the way. You're not going to be able to see me do it anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and plug those in and show you afterwards. And there they are, all plugged in, the cords pulled back out to clean it up, and that is the case all plugged in nice and clean. The cable that comes from the VGA on the power supply is interesting because there are 2 parts. You got a 6 and a 2, because I guess there are VGA or GPU, graphics processing unit cards out there that only have 6 ports. My particular one happens to have 8 ports, so we bring this up through the bottom here. We're going to plug it in right there, and so that we've got power to our card, and it clicks right in, sweet as can be. And now what I've got to do is I've got a whole bunch of cable organizing to do, so I'm going to spend a little while doing that, and then I'll show you the finished product, and then we'll turn it on and pray. Or no, we'll pray and then turn it on. You got to do it in the right order. So anyway, that's where we are now, and all we can do is clean up the mess and hope for the best. Okay, I hope I'm not out of focus, but here we are. I've put the cables together. It's down there where I keep my computer. It's kind of at a skitty-wampus angle right now, but I think I'm gonna hit the start button, and I've got the monitors hooked up. I've got the keyboard and mouse in there. That's all, and of course the SSD drive. Haven't got the other hard drives or anything hooked up, but anyway, here goes. We'll see what happens. Oh, I heard a noise. Let's see if either of the monitors start working. If not, then the graphics card is not. The fan is spinning on the CPU, so there's light on the graphics card. So let me do a little exploratory work and see what we can figure out. See where we go from here. There it is, moving and a shaking. Look at those beautiful colors compared to what most of the kids do nowadays. That's not much color. As a matter of fact, I'm even kind of upset about the white fans. Well, you can probably tell, different shirt color. A lot has happened since the last part that you saw. Even though it went by like that for you, it's been actually a few days for me, and I'll tell you why. As I showed, it didn't start up. And part of the reason it didn't start up is because I didn't have all the connections in as tight as it should, it appears. But later I learned there were some connections on the motherboard that were bad. So I ended up getting a replacement motherboard and putting it all back together again, but I didn't re-record the putting it all back together again. Would I do this again? Well, I think maybe if I was a woman, I could relate to this way, but since my wife has had a few children, I've been through it a little bit, and that is, it is very miserable to be pregnant for 9 months and then go through the horrendous pain of giving birth. But then you see the results and you love that baby. And so after a year or two, you've kind of forgotten all the pain. So I don't know, I might do it in a year or two, but it was a difficult process. And after you get it all put together and working, then you've got to add all the drivers, you've got to make all the adjustments and the tweaks, and that is even when I transferred the SSD over. So I still had all the programs and everything on that SSD. Still had to add drivers, reactivate Windows, and do a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't know what to tell you. For us older guys, now if you're one of the young guys, you probably get through that thing just as piece of cake. Anyway, it's working. This video that you're watching right now was made on this new computer. And by the way, I think I may have mentioned before that I recorded or rendered the video from the Moab Part 1 that was one of the most recent videos that I put up before this one. And it took 39 minutes and 47, I believe it was, seconds to render. I rendered the exact same video on this computer and it took 6 minutes and 30 something seconds. It was 6 times faster. That's like going from 10 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour. That is a significant speed increase, and that's what I did it all for. So it is a beautiful baby when I get looking at it. It's a beautiful baby, and so maybe someday, if I'm still capable of it, I might do it again, but not for a little while. But I am glad to have it done. Hey, listen, this is Scott Law, the world's oldest vlogger, and all I've got to do and say is, until next time, keep on keeping on.